Namaskar, good afternoon, everyone. I am Professor Ramesh Gaur, Dean and Head Kalanidhi Division, Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts. I extend a very warm welcome to all to this webinar on Indian handicraft post COVID-19, along with the release of a virtual exhibition on Indian handicrafts from Kalanidhi Visual Archive Collection. As you know, IGNCA is having a rich treasure of various cultural heritage resources. And Kalanidhi is the treasure trove of various collections. It includes photographs, visuals, manuscripts, print library, electronic library. And time to time, we organize various kind of exhibitions and seminars, conferences based on these collections. And today in this direction, we are showcasing the beauty of our visual archive collection. And for this important webinar and release of exhibition, we have a very eminent and honorable guest with us. We have with us Ms. Jaya Jaitly, President and Founder, Dastkari Haat Samiti. So ma'am, we thank you for your kind presence and welcome you to this webinar. And thanks for your sparing valuable time and gracing this occasion. We also have Professor Ashoke Chatterjee, former Director, National Institute of Design, Ahmedabad, and currently Honorary Advisor, Craft Councils of India. Thank you, Professor Chatterjee, and welcome you to this webinar. And we are so glad you were able to make it. As you all know, Indian handicrafts is like a precious stone in the visual crown of Indian culture and heritage. And from ancient civilization to today, every societies, every civilization has seen the beauty of Indian handicrafts. And to maintain the beauty of these handicrafts and also to preserve it for the posterity, because as per the change in the time, many of the crafts are endangered of being extinct, and many of the crafts have already been extinct in the last few decades. So it is an important task for preservation of this visual cultural heritage. And institutions like IGNCA understand this role and responsibility. And we do various programs besides preservation of this visual heritage. We also promote it. We organize various kind of fairs, festivals, craft exhibitions, and Ms. Jaya Jaitly has been very kind to collaborate with IGNCA on several occasions, and we have been showcasing Indian handicrafts in our various programs. So today specifically, we thought of discussing this issue of Indian handicraft post-COVID or even current pandemic, and also along with that, we thought of giving some glimpses of our own collections, having in our visual archive. These discussions are chaired by our Member Secretary, Dr. Sachchidanand Joshi. He is engaged in some other program currently. He will join us soon during the program. And I also have my colleagues with me, Mr. Biren Bangru. He's a documentation officer in Kalanidhi and now currently associate professor and regional director of our Jammu Regional Center. He's promoting Indian culture, craft, and different aspects of regional culture in Jammu region. And he is the person who has collected a lot of such visuals from various places. We also have with us Ms. Mekla Mani. She's currently in charge of the visual archive in Kalanidhi and has done very hard work in bringing out this particular virtual exhibition. So thank you both of you for curating this particular exhibition and making this possible. And I also welcome all the participants who have joined. Some joined directly on this Zoom platform, but as we are also broadcasting it live on Facebook Live, IGNCA Facebook Live page. So many people prefer to join on IGNCA Facebook Live page. So I welcome you all who are currently linked with us on Zoom as well as on Facebook Live. So with these words of welcome and introduction, let's start the program. And we start the program with uh, the virtual exhibition which has been prepared for this occasion. These were the few glimpses from the exhibition uh, from our visual archive collection, which is about 108,000 visuals collected from various parts of uh, India and also from various foreign libraries, Chester Beatty collection, Victoria Albert Museum collection, and there are a number of other important collections we have in our visual archive. Uh, so moving ahead in this program, as you know, we are passing through a very difficult time, and all of us are living in a kind of uncertainty due to this pandemic. And everybody has impact on this particular, because of this impact, COVID-19. And same is the case of Indian handicraft. Uh, Many of the craftsmen who totally depend upon their livelihood through earning from various crafts, uh, finding it very difficult to survive. And to guide us on these matters and also give us or give message to those craftsmen how they should uh, work, how they should think of changing their strategies and how to survive in this particular difficult time. We have with us Ms. Jaya Jaitly, who is a promoter, an expert in the field of India's art and crafts cottage industries. The Dastkari Haat Samiti Arts and Craft Market was founded by her in year 1986 to enable rural artisans of traditional Indian crafts to gain confidence in the marketplace through many innovative strategies. Her work brings together artisans from India, Pakistan, Vietnam, Africa, Asia, and has been taken up by the Indian government as an instrument in diplomacy to bring together crafts practitioners from all over the globe to share their skills and assist in capacity building. She has authored and published books on crafts of Jammu, Kashmir, and Ladakh and craft traditions of India, Viscount's Children, a socio-economic study of craftspeople and crafting nature. A selection of her articles on politics, social issues, women rights, human rights, foreign affairs uh, has been compiled in a book titled Podium on the Pavement. She has assisted NCRT in creating a syllabus for the craft heritage of India as a school. She edits and publishes a monthly political journal of democratic socialist thought and action called The Other Side. She has been deeply involved in heritage issues at all levels and has received awards from PhD Chamber and FICCI for her work in culture and arts as a role model for women leaders. So welcome you, ma'am. Thank you very much. And now we request you to guide us.
Thank you so much for inviting us and having this program. This is a time when crafts have to be focused with very, very strong lights, because what we were looking forward to as a season of joy, where the harvest of the farmer is brought in for the prosperity and well-being of entire communities. And the craftsperson has always, ever since we have been agrarian societies, the craftsperson and uh, the farmer have been very, very closely linked. And while the farm sector is given so much importance in India, the craftsperson who had an inextricable link through the local hearts, through the joint celebration. You could not have Diwali without millions of clay diyas. You could not have any festivals of this season without new hand-woven clothes or beautiful dolls, or any simple parrot in clay is still found on the pavements during this season, where you just buy it as part of your decorations. And decorating one's life is only there when you are celebrating and you are happy and your culture is alive. And we were looking forward to this season a lot. I don't want to sound gloomy, but what has happened is, just at this season, because of the fear of crowding in markets and people not wearing masks, the all our marketing avenues, which are real craft bazaars, where the karigar brings new stuff made during the summer months in his home, that is brought to marketplaces, whether it's the ordinary pavement bazaar or it is a fancy shop or it is craft bazaars organized by people like us. This was the time they really began their earning season. And the saddest thing is that this is the time where they seem to be cut off from their lifeline, which is the customer. There is a lot of talk of e-commerce, and I'm being very practical now and talking about practical things and not esoteric things so much to start with, is because people say, what about e-commerce? e-commerce is a very serious thing, but what the IGNCA is in fact doing is making a beautiful story, presentations about the beauty of our crafts. 99% of what you showed is still existing, but uh, how do you get it? And all on the internet, it becomes a time for delayed payments. It becomes a time for logging, registering, learning the whole on internet system. It means having a computer. These things take time for a karigar in the village to catch up. So they need, one, a lot of hand holding, and two, somehow, I suppose all we can do is to pray with our hand on our hearts that this season we pass through quickly and there is no surge in the COVID and we can continue. The reason why this your presentation was heartening was because people like us who are working in the field, we know how many of those craft skills still exist. And I think that is the biggest joy of our country, that these skills still exist. And I've been reading, researching, writing for, in fact, a book that ICCR is bringing out, a chapter on crafts, in which I've been looking at what is the motivation of craftspeople through generations to have continued. Every other sector has huge leaps and bounds of technology. They go into different worlds, they give up their old skills and start afresh at something completely different. And there are many subjects to learn. One downside of why the craftspeople have not moved on to other areas and professions largely is because ancient old caste systems kept them tied into their caste structure. They did not have that kind of mobility. They did not have access to education in the way the better off castes had. And so I've always found, while people don't like to talk about caste, in a strange, negative but positive way, craft has kept skills within families and passed down. One reason being there isn't been much of an alternative to move out into something else. But there is a upside also, and the best part of our upside is the part of our Indian culture, which is established from the very beginning, from the time of the Shilpa Shastras. You understand what the Shilpa Shastras inculcated into the subconscious of the craftspeople of today, which still exists even though the craftspeople may not even have heard of the Shilpa Shastra. And that is that, one, of course, in those days there was no caste division. All communities, whether male or female, any kind of skill, they were treated with equal honor and respect and equally needed, each one connected with the other. Today, we have jumped millennia to find that we are in areas of specialization, compartmentalization. In government, it reflects as silos of work being attended to by different ministries, and they don't share so much as we would all like them to share. And therefore, these skills, which otherwise are shared equally across the board, they get kept into the craftspeople's hearts as a philosophy of a value system and ideas of what even such a concept as moksha. Moksha means to look for meaning in life. It doesn't mean to attain salvation. It means to look inwards and understand the meaning of life. Each person has to look for that role of what is their meaning in life. And those karigars and those professions which have understood this and in their subconscious through centuries absorb this. And we do know historically that there are how people pass on their DNA, so that now we can find out from our DNA whether we descended from Central Asian stock or from African stock. In the same way, when you look at the DNA, say, of the African or Aborigine, and how they have moved across to Australia, but their systems and techniques and thoughts and philosophy and ideas and visualizations are so much like our Gond, which you showed earlier also. So there is a connectivity that stays on in our subconscious. And I believe that the importance of Indian philosophy has been this inculcation of a much, much deeper value system than the West has ever given to craft. Craft is sort of an artistic skill in the West. But in India, the art flourished from a bhavana of seva, of dedication to their God, to the deity, to the inward journey, even into themselves. How our craftspeople are so meditative when they work. They are not noisy, and they like to be quiet, they like to focus, and they have a meaning in everything they're doing. Every image they make has a meaning in that. And I believe that these meanings are what sustain our society, even though we don't realize it. The value of sacrificing something of yourself or giving something of yourself to the society at large, to community at large. So when you make a mud pot, when you make a mat, when you make a chadar, it is to share your love and communication with your daughter at her marriage, or it can be with the neighborhood to celebrate. It can be lighting the lamp for the temple. It has a community purpose and a certain auspicious love and a feeling of positive sharing. It has not been a business transaction. The business transaction is when you only calculate in profit and you see how little you can put of yourself and how much you can get out of it. Our karigars, sometimes I think they over embellish, and that is because they want to give so much of themselves that they don't realize in the marketplace of today, you can do less work and earn more. And many designers, I think Professor Ashok Chatterjee will agree with me, having headed a big design institute, that a lot of the students, and me and not being a student there, but teaching or explaining design to craftspeople, we always tell them, इसमें कम काम करो तो भी अच्छा लगेगा, कम काम करो लेकिन दाम बेशक बढ़ाओ, because we feel that they over embellish and then that takes more time. And if you start calculating in payment per hour, they are very much exploited. But they don't look at it that way. They look as if they feel as if they are offering a beautiful creation in their heart to their gods, but otherwise to their neighbor, their daughter, their in temple, any reason at all. So these are all the motivations we have which have sustained us. So while we still say, why are crafts dying? Why we always ask these questions, why are they suffering? In a way, you can't say they're suffering more than others today. The migrant labor is suffering as much as the karigar who can't get out of their house to sell, or who has no raw material, or who has so many difficulties, and all of us do. But I suppose everybody in society gets together and they face major challenges like this. But I think the craft sector embellishes other people's lives, and in that they embellish themselves. That is the feeling they still offer us, even in these difficult times. And I think that is what we have to understand. Somehow create markets for them. Last year, we had a beautiful exhibition at IGNCA, both in the hall and outside in the garden. And the atmosphere was so lovely. Everybody enjoyed it. And I was hoping this year also we could use those lovely lawns. But I think at the moment you haven't started that kind of activity. But the sooner we do it, the more space the craftsperson can get to meet face to face with their customer, who can touch the object, who can wear the sari around them and see what it looks like. Then craft will flourish. And I think Dr. Professor Gaur will remember, in the hall we had that Gandhi exhibition, in which just all I needed to do was to telephone 40 karigars and say, in your kala, in your karigari, just give some idea and an image and a roop to your idea of Gandhi. And the kind of amazing things, from carpets to statuettes to glass figures to every kind of craft, created some beautiful image of Gandhi which no designer, none of us could have ever visualized. So this is a kind of thing craftspeople need. They need opportunity, they need inspiration, They need a little nudge to give them that confidence, and they need beautiful spaces in which to show. I really believe, I'm maybe very old fashioned, but I believe that internet and digital has its limitations, and we can't believe that that's going to be a long term solution for the future, except for people whose whole lives depend on that technology. But crafts is so basically handmade, the hand, the heart, and the mind, and the human being, that I think that is a gem to be preserved. And any program like this that you're having, I think, is a step towards keeping that preservation going. So I'll stop here and hope that we can have a lively discussion with others. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, for your very motivating address. And you rightly said that technology can facilitate and can help in speed up or better coordination, but it cannot be substitute for many things. And the kind of suggestion or the advice you have given to provide more spaces to the craftsmen through for showcasing, also to market and also to connect with the customer. I think there are many things which we really need to think over, and I'm sure your views have been gone to the large number of people, and people will definitely uh, spread this message and will have more impact on the people. Mindsets are something very, because sometimes like we are closed because of fear, uh, and sometimes we have to come out, we cannot remain in the closed door forever. And suppose if corona is not going to and many people are predicting it may remain part of our life for long. So I think we have to live with it, and we have to find out ways and means. And you are very rightly given us directions. The way Indian crafts is embedded in Indian cultural heritage and traditions. That is the beauty, and you are very beautifully make a difference between Indian handicraft and handicraft all over the world. Thank you very much. We'll definitely have a discussion later. Now I would like to invite Professor Ashoke Chatterjee, who has education from Delhi University and Miami University, Ohio. He has a background in the engineering industry, international civil services, India Tourist Development Corporation, and he was he has served 25 years in the services of National Institute of Design, where he was the executive director, senior faculty, distinguished fellow, and professor of communication and management in the NID Ahmedabad. And he was instrumental in giving international recognition to NID, particularly in the field of design research and training. He has served a range of development institutions in India and overseas, particularly in the sectors of livelihoods, handicrafts, drinking water, sanitation, education, and disability, as well as working with artisans in many parts in India. He is the honorary president of Craft Council of India, and he has served in many boards in USA and has authored a number of books. He's a writer of Dances of the Golden Hall on the art of Shanta Rao and rising of empowerment efforts among deprived communities in rural Gujarat. Uh, Professor Chatterjee continued to assist design education and is advisor at Ahmedabad University's Center for Heritage Management. We request you to guide us on this topic. And over to you, Professor.
Thank you, Professor Gaur. This is a wonderful opportunity to look at the challenge which you placed, which is what can we do now in this difficult time of the pandemic for the artisans, for all the reasons that Jayaji has mentioned. Let me start by paying homage to Kapila Vatsan, who did so much to make IGNCA a catalyst for an understanding and appreciation of India's culture and specifically its craft culture. Her immense contributions is the ground on which hopefully the coming generation can stand. If we look at this particular pandemic and the impact that it has had, And Jayaji has mentioned how devastating this impact is at this particular time of festivity, which used to be the peak of the time for earnings and for livelihoods, which are so critical. And it's been a very difficult time for artisans, not just because of the pandemic. They've been through several years where one disaster after the other has struck them. It could be floods, as happened in Kerala. It could be demonetization, which ruined one whole year of earnings. It could be a faulty rollout of GST, which hit at another period. One thing after the other. Political unrest in places where artisans are concentrated, like Kashmir in the Northeast. It's been a very, very bad few years for artisans. Every time they come out of a crisis, there's another one around the corner to hit them. And now, COVID-19. And many of the migrants that we just heard about, many of them were karigars and dastakars who had had to leave their rural homes in search of livelihoods in urban slums, living under very difficult conditions, and then going through this excruciating period when they have had to try and go back to the security of their homes. One of the things that Jayaji mentioned, which I think is particularly important now in the context of COVID and this very tragic migration in and out of cities, is that link she mentioned between the farm, between agriculture and crafts. The big challenge now is what will happen to those millions who have had to go back to their rural homes? Because agriculture can only support a small number of them. The great importance of crafts is that they provide non-farm rural livelihoods to people in their own locations. And that's an advantage which has been ignored for a long time, but at this particular time, we can no longer afford to ignore that. What can we now do to create a situation where craft production can take place in rural environments and the products and services which artisans make in their own environments can reach markets both locally as well as outside? That is the real challenge just now that we are facing. And there is no simple solution that any one of us has found. At this time, we're all struggling, excuse me, we're all struggling with ways in which to address this need, that craft production should be encouraged in the rural areas, in the places where artisans are located, and that they don't again have to leave. So here's an opportunity, although it has come in a very difficult way, here's an opportunity to show our ability to understand a crisis, to respond to a crisis, and to make crafts again a vital part of the rural economy. Although we keep talking about crafts as rural, the actual reality has been over recent years that a very large proportion of our crafts have come out of urban slums. And the reason for that is that the services that an artisan needs of raw material, of technology, of finance, of design, of marketing and distribution is simply impossible from a rural situation. So I think that is where we need to really concentrate. But let us see IGNCA as a catalyst institution. And Jayaji just mentioned that last year at this time, you had given a great opportunity in your space. I think one of the most immediate things IGNCA can do, even though we can't put a date on it just now, is to give a signal that yes, the IGNCA space will be available again to artisans. We don't know when that will be possible, But if a signal comes from IGNCA that as soon as possible, this one space in one city will be available to you again, that would be a kind of signal of support and of respect, which would be wonderful. And then all of us could work together towards that event, which would be very special, no matter when it happens. We would have to find ways, because as Jayaji mentioned just now, the biggest challenge is to provide opportunities where they can actually move stocks of craft production, which are piling up in their homes and godowns, and which are locking up their capital and preventing them from having money in their pockets and food in their stomachs. So we need these opportunities of hope. I think the other point that is very important in terms of IGNC's own role is this issue that was also mentioned of honor and respect. That is perhaps the greatest need of this time. And although the government and private agencies and NGOs have done a lot over these years, the fact remains that our artisans do not feel as if they are respected. They do not feel as if they are honored. And we need to tackle that, because that is the only thing that really can bring the next generation to respect their tradition and to continue in that area. Some years ago, almost 50 years ago, when I started working with the craft community in Rajasthan, all the young people would say, you can continue to talk about our great craft, but for us, it is the badge of shame. It is because we are raigars, because we are weavers, because we are bunkars and raigars, that people look down on us. We don't want this craft. We don't want to be associated with this craft. We want to go to Ahmedabad, Jaipur, Delhi, Bombay, so where nobody knows that we are bunkars and raigars. And we can get some measure of respect, which this craft does not give us. 50 years later, those young people now see their craft as a source of respect. And just as Jayaji mentioned, they say that because now, for those who have decided to remain in the craft, they're doing that out of choice, not because they have to. They do it out of choice. Just about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I got a call from this village from a young woman who wanted me to know that she had passed her college degree with honors. And I thought this was wonderful. So I said, what are you now going to do? She said, well, I'm going to look for jobs and I'm going to look for ways in which I can support my family. And I said, that's wonderful. And I wish you every success. Then she said to me, और आपने नहीं पूछा कि मैं बुनकार हूँ या नहीं. So I said, well, are you going to weave? Are you weaving? She said, of course I'm weaving. Of course I'm weaving. I will weave until I die. But I'll also do other things. And I now know computers. I now have a working knowledge of English. I will manage the business for my family. So she sees herself as an entrepreneur, and she loves her tradition because it gives her both respect as well as the options that other young people have to move out. And here it may be important to go back to what Jayaji was just saying about what is the importance of this activity that we call hastakala or craft in terms of a meaningful life. At the end of the day, it's that which will sustain the crafts. And I think it's important to know that in this world today, at a time of COVID, when everyone is talking about sustainability, and everyone is saying, as you've just said, Professor Gaur, that COVID may be here to stay. Why is COVID here to stay? Or something else like COVID which may come? Because of climate change, because of what we have done to our environment. And here is an industry, India's second largest source of livelihood, which has the lowest carbon footprint, which is respectful of the environment, which works with natural materials, which knows how to recycle materials, which makes a very low demand on energy, which can be greened much more easily than any other large industry in the country. So it has this huge contemporary relevance. And apart from that, it also addresses almost every important sustainable development goal set up by the United Nations as the universal benchmarks for progress. Whether it is in the environment, whether it is empowering those at the margins of society, whether it is addressing the needs of women, whether it is uplifting the marginalized and the oppressed, all of those issues crafts can address and does address. But we still don't take it sufficiently seriously. Even though I've said, and others are saying, that this is the second largest source of livelihood in the country, the government of India does not know how many artisans we have. 70 years after freedom, we don't know. And because we don't know, investment is not made in this industry. How will people invest in an industry the size of which is unknown? So we have a lot of homework to do on the economic side if the culture of crafts is to flourish. And I think we not only have to live with Corona, but we have to understand what Corona is telling us, that we need economic activity of this kind, which respects the earth and which respects each other. And I think that is the important thing. Because when you mentioned at the beginning that what needs to go to posterity, what is the culture that we need to pass on to the next generation? Certainly it is some of the products that you showed in this beautiful collection, but it is the philosophy behind those products. It is the creativity and innovation and the ability to create and to innovate behind those products. That is the quality and the capacity which we need to pass on to the next generation, because it is those capacities which will protect our society in the years to come. So thank you for this opportunity and all the very best to IGNCA for its efforts.
Thank you, Professor Chatterjee, for such a wonderful and very thought-provoking. Your vision was that of Mahatma Gandhi, if I say that what Mahatma Gandhi talks about rural India and you presented an action plan for 21st century, like the way you talked about innovative strategies, and I think that's something well going with UN Sustainable Development Goals, and something we have to accept it. I think that we have an opportunity, like whenever Prime Minister talks about Atmanirbhar Bharat, that the number of the artisans involved and it can have a great impact on economy. And you talked about living with the dignity and also of their right to live with the dignity, and also there are certain mindset and our societal issues concerning the various kind of caste system and mindset of the people. And we are also very, very, very keen that as soon as possible we should, although after the start of this pandemic, our all programs have become online. But definitely online can be, I always feel that we have to live in hybrid mode. Online can be a good platform to reach out to the more people, but there are certain activities which required personal interaction, which required face-to-face discussion, and I'm sure at an appropriate time we'll definitely love to again invite Ms. Jaya, Jaitly and you for further such events and to collaborate with the various craftsmen. So so we have with us our colleague Dr. Bangru. He has traveled across India and has been closely interacting with the crafts. Besides having collections at IGNCA Kalanidhi, he's having a passion to work for various promotion of these crafts and in remote areas. So before inviting you again for interaction and question and answers, I would like to invite him for some brief comments about like how IGNCA is doing, like besides this preserving visuals, what else IGNCA is doing, and how, in the light of the comments, what Mr. Bangru would like to give a brief comments before we go for question answer. Over to Bangru ji.
नमस्कार नमस्कार आदरणीय प्रोफेसर सच्चिदानंद जोशी जी, मेंबर सेक्रेटरी IGNCA, प्रोफेसर आरसी गौर जी, HOD कलानिधि एंड डीन IGNCA, आदरणीय जया जटले जी एंड प्रोफेसर अशोक चटर्जी। भारत एक कृषि प्रधान देश है। इसके साथ साथ विभिन्न हस्तकलाओं का सर्जन यहाँ हर गांव में देखने को मिलता है। आत्मनिर्भर भारत का यही मूल मंत्र है। There are more than 6,40,000 villages in India. India lives in villages, and every village specializes in art and craft. The art and craft is pivotal in Indian cultural society. There is mention of 64 arts in Bharatiya Sanskriti. These art forms are elaborated by Vatsyayana in Kama Sutra, but rarely talked about. It mentions diverse arts and craft in handicrafts like sewing, tailoring, making dolls, jewelry, painting, making flavored drinks and perfumes, singing, dancing, playing musical instruments, and other skill crafts like architecture, carpentry, gardening, sculpture making. And there is also mention of highly skilled jobs like chemistry, mining, and water conservation in this Vatsyaya's Kama Sutra. वात्स्यायन कहते हैं कि जो 64 कलाओं की ट्रेनिंग नर और नारी को समान रूप से देनी चाहिए। दूसरी शताब्दी का ये ग्रंथ है, ये कामसूत्र, और विविध प्रकार के कलाओं का वर्णन कितना अद्भुत एवं कलात्मक रहा होगा वो परिवेश, उस समय का समाज, उसकी बस अब हम कल्पना ही कर सकते हैं। लेकिन जो भी बचा खुचा है वो भी किसी से कम नहीं और आवश्यक है इसको सजोने की। भारतीय संस्कृति में कलाओं का अधिक महत्व है। हमारे पर्व, समारोह, उत्सव एवं संस्कारों में विभिन्न हस्तशिल्प का प्रयोग होता है। भारतीय संस्कृति में कलाओं का समग्रता से अध्ययन करने की आवश्यकता है, जिसकी पूर्ति इंदिरा गांधी राष्ट्रीय कला केंद्र द्वारा आयोजित विभिन्न कार्यक्रमों में देखने को मिलती है। विभिन्न कलाओं का आपसी समन्वय, मानव और पर्यावरण के में संबंध, शास्त्र और प्रयोग, इन्हीं मूलभूत सिद्धांतों को लेकर के IGNCA ने मूर्त एवं अमूर्त सांस्कृतिक धाराओं का प्रलेखन एवं अध्ययन कर इनका एक सेतु स्थापित करने का कार्य किया है। सांस्कृतिक धरोहर का प्रलेखन, अध्ययन और शोध, इसका शैक्षणिक वितरण वो जो है संगोष्ठियों द्वारा और यहाँ की प्रदर्शनियों द्वारा एवं प्रकाशों द्वारा समय समय पर किया जाता है। IGNCA के प्रांगण में हमने समस्त भारत की प्राचीन कला एवं कलाकारों को सजीव देखा है। यहाँ हमें अवसर मिला है भारत की उत्कृष्ट जो है सांस्कृतिक धरोहर को से रूबरू होने का। IGNCA में विभिन्न विभाग एवं से जुड़े कार्य भारतीय सांस्कृतिक धारा को आगे बढ़ा रहे हैं। केंद्र का जनपद संपदा विभाग जीवन शैली से जुड़े अध्ययन का कार्य करता है। इस विभाग में भारतीय शिल्प कला का उद्भुत आर्काइव्स है। पंजाब की फुलकारी हो, रबारी जाति के आभूषण एवं वस्त्र, पूर्व उत्तर भारत की जो है आदिवासी वस्त्र एवं उनकी कला, आसाम के जो टेक्सटाइल्स और हैंडीक्राफ्ट्स, पेंटिंग की बात करें तो गोंड पेंटिंग्स, वर्ली पेंटिंग, सोरा पेंटिंग, फिर मिथिला क्षेत्र की जो चित्रकला, निमानी पेंटिंग्स, कलमकारी चित्रकला, ये सब यहाँ पर सुशोभित हैं। इनका यहाँ पर लेखन हुआ है और यहाँ पर ये सुरक्षित रखे गए हैं। इसके साथ साथ पपेट्स को जो कठपुतली और जो है मास्क, मुखौटों का भी एक अद्भुत संग्रह इस जनपद संपदा विभाग में है। और जो ये मुखौटे हैं, ये जो है देश विदेश से यहाँ एकत्रित किए गए हैं वहाँ की संस्कृतियों को समझने के लिए। और इसके साथ साथ जो है हम देखते हैं कि पपेट्स भी हमें जो है देश विदेश में जो है पपेट्स हैं, चाहे वो स्ट्रिंग पपेट हो, जो है रॉड पपेट हो, शैडो पपेट्स हो, इसको भी देश और जो है विदेश से भी एकत्रित करके जो है यहाँ सजाया गया है। समय समय पर इसकी प्रदर्शनियां भी लगती है। कलानिधि विभाग जो है यहाँ IGNCA का, इसमें जो है आर्ट एंड क्राफ्ट जो है इस पर बहुत सारी पुस्तकों का बहुत बड़ा संग्रह है। आर्ट एंड क्राफ्ट, इसको जानना समझना इस देश का जो है, उसको समझने के लिए यहाँ बहुत बड़ा जो है संग्रह है पुस्तकों का। और साथ साथ में यहाँ पर हमारे पास बहुत सारी पांडुलिपियां हैं जिनका प्रलेखन जो है 50 से अधिक संस्थाओं में जाकर के IGNCA ने किया, और उनकी प्रतियां यहाँ माइक्रो फिल्म में उपलब्ध है। और इन पांडुलिपियों में हमें पारंपरिक जो है कला शिल्प के ग्रंथ भी उपलब्ध हैं। तो ये भी आवश्यक है, जो इस पर शोध कर रहे हैं, जो विचार कर रहे हैं, कि वो इन ग्रंथों का भी अध्ययन इस यहाँ पर इंदिरा गांधी राष्ट्रीय कला केंद्र में कर सकते हैं। कलानिधि में जो विजुअल आर्काइव्स है, इसमें 1 लाख से अधिक चित्रों का संग्रह है। अब जिसमें भारतीय जो है कला, जो है वास्तु, नृत्य इत्यादि के चित्र हैं, जो विभिन्न संग्रहालयों से हमने प्रलेखन कर एवं छाया चित्रण करने के बाद संग्रहित किया है। और इनका विस्तृत ब्यौरा जो है आपको IGNCA की वेबसाइट से मिल सकता है, जो यहाँ जो कलेक्शन है कलानिधि में और पूरे IGNCA में। अब हम हथकरघा की बात करते हैं, हथकरघा, हैंडीक्राफ्ट्स। और इससे जो हम जो है रोजमर्रा जो आने वाली चीजें हैं वो हम देखते हैं जो हथकरघा से निर्मित होती है, जैसे वस्त्र है, आभूषण है, खिलौने, बर्तन इत्यादि। अब विगत जो कई वर्षों से हम देख रहे हैं कि बहुत सारी चीजें जो परंपरागत जो चीजें थी, जो हम हर दिन प्रयोग में लाते थे, वो देखने को नहीं मिल रही है। अब हम देखते हैं कि इसके बदले जो हो रहा है वो है कि जो सस्ते विदेशी आयात, वो घरेलू उत्पाद के जो मार्केट को खत्म कर रहे हैं। जो सस्ते विदेशी जो उत्पाद आयात हैं, जो उत्पाद हैं बाहर विदेशों के, वो हम यहाँ पर ला करके, वो उससे हमारा जो घरेलू उत्पाद था, घरेलू मार्केट था, कहीं उस पर बहुत बड़ा असर पड़ा हुआ है। और हम देखते हैं कि वो प्लास्टिक और एल्युमिनियम में अब हमारा संसार अच्छा बसा है। और हम देखते हैं कि अब कुछ ही दिनों पहले मैंने एक समाचार सुना, तो उसमें ये सुनने को मिला कि हमने पिछले वर्ष करोड़ों रुपए की रखड़ी हमने जो है आयात करी है चीन से। अब देखिए, जो ये रखड़ी होती है, ये धागा और इसमें जो है कुछ मोती, कुछ पिरोए होते हैं। ये तो एक हमारा जो है एक उद्योग था, घरेलू क्राफ्ट था ये। इसको बाहर से लाने की क्या आवश्यकता थी? ये तो छोटा सा उदाहरण है। और मुझे लगता है बहुत सारी ऐसी चीजें हैं जो हम विदेशों से ला रहे हैं और जिनको लाने की कोई आवश्यकता है ही नहीं। हमारे ऊपर थोपा जा रहा है, और सस्ता जो यहाँ पर जो बाजार यहाँ हमने बना दिया है, इससे हमने क्या किया, लाखों लोगों को हमने बेरोजगार कर दिया है। ये जो कोरोना की बात है, ये कोरोना से जो ये महामारी फैली है उससे पहले की बात है। और जो चीजें वो अभी निरंतर चली आ रही है इसमें। आप देखिए, जो क्षेत्रीय जो चीजें हैं, क्षेत्रीय जो वस्तु बनते थे, जो क्राफ्ट बनता था, वो भी समाप्ति के कगार पर है। अब ये क्यों है? ये तो इसके लिए क्या करना चाहिए, इसके लिए यहाँ पर बुद्धिजीवी बैठे हैं, मुझे लगता है उनको विचार करना चाहिए। मेरे पास भी कुछ सुझाव है, अगर वो उचित समझे तो मैं उनके सम्मुख रख सकता हूँ, जिससे ये हम कहीं न कहीं हम इसको बचा सके। मेरा जो है बहुत सारा जो है मेरे ट्रैवल्स लद्दाख क्षेत्र में रहे हैं। और जब हम लद्दाख के जो पारंपरिक शिल्प और हस्तकला की जो बात करते हैं, तो हर कोई चाहता है कि वो लद्दाख जाएं और वहां से वो वहां का जो पारंपरिक शिल्प और जो वहाँ का हस्तकला है, ले मार्केट में जाएं, वहां पर उपलब्ध रहता है तो वहां से खरीदें। लेकिन आपको ये जानकर आश्चर्य होगा कि लद्दाख में जो भी हमें वास्तुकला, वो जो भी हमें जो शिल्प मिलता है, जो हैंडीक्राफ्ट्स और जो भी आइटम्स मिलते हैं, वो वहां नहीं बन रहे हैं। वो जो बन रहे हैं वो दिल्ली में बन रहे हैं, वो मुरादाबाद में बन रहे हैं, वो अलीगढ़ में बन रहे हैं, और वो जो है वहां पर बेचा जाता है लद्दाख में। अब देखिए कि इससे क्या हो रहा है कि इससे जो वहां के जो 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 कार्य कर रहे थे, इसमें इस उद्योग में कार्य कर रहे थे, तो उनको बहुत बड़ी क्षति पहुंची है इससे। अब मैंने खुद देखा है कि हाँ, बस्तर की कलाकृतियां मैंने दिल्ली में बनते हुए देखी है। मधु विहार है दिल्ली में, वहां पर मैं एक दिन जा रहा था वहां पर, तो मुझे वहां पता चला कि वहां पर बस्तर का जो जो कलाकृतियां हैं, जो वो बनाते हैं, वो वहां पर जो है तहखानों में वहां पर बन रहे हैं, और उसको वहीं से जो है फिर पैकिंग करके विदेश में लिया जाता है। तो अब इससे जो बस्तर का जो उद्योग है वो पनपेगा कहाँ? उसको तो कहीं और कोई और मार्केट कर रहा है। और कहीं कोई और लोग उसको आगे कर रहे हैं। तो ये भी एक यहाँ पर भी विचार करने की आवश्यकता है। और अगर मैं जो है कुल्लू और कश्मीर के जो शॉल, जो डिजाइन्स हैं, जो हम शॉल में देखते हैं, कश्मीरी शॉल और जो है कुल्लू शॉल, अब ये और जो इसका फैब्रिक है वो अब कश्मीर और कुल्लू में नहीं बन रहा है, वो जो है पंजाब में बन रहा है, पंजाब की फैक्ट्रीज में बन रहा है और वहां पर बेचा जा रहा है। वहाँ जो पर्यटक जाते हैं वो यही समझ कर कि ये कुल्लू का है या ये कश्मीर के शॉल्स हैं, वो वहाँ का न शॉल है, न वहाँ का फैब्रिक है, और ना कि वो कोई कढ़ाई है, सारे जो है मशीन द्वारा निर्मित होकर के वहां पर बेचा जाता है। अब जो है, मैं एक और उदाहरण मैं आपके सामने रखता हूँ। फुलकारी का एक बहुत अच्छा कलेक्शन हमारे पास है, आईजीएनसी के पास है। और फुलकारी प्रदर्शन के लिए मुझे डॉक्यूमेंटेशन हेतु मुझे पंजाब जाने का अवसर मिला, और पंजाब के कई शहरों में मैं गया वहां पर। जो इस फुलकारी जो जो ये परंपरागत जो है ये कला है, पंजाब की है, इसमें कार्य करते हैं। तो वहां पर मैंने पटियाला में देखा कि वहां जो है, जो पंजाब की जो महिलाएं वो ये कार्य नहीं कर रही हैं, वहां पर बिहार की महिलाएं आकर के फुलकारी बना रही है। ये एक चीज है। दूसरा जो है, मैं एक और उदाहरण आपके सामने रखूंगा कि वो ये जो है, जो आप जो पूरा हिमालय क्षेत्र है हमारा, जो है हम लद्दाख जो है ऊपर वाला जो क्षेत्र है इसका, हिमाचल का लाहौल स्पीति, फिर जो है हमारे उत्तराखंड के जो जो दुर्गम क्षेत्र है, फिर अरुणाचल और सिक्किम। तो यहाँ पर जो हमारे जो है बौद्ध धर्म के यहाँ अनुयायी रहते हैं, और यहाँ पर एक परंपरा थी, वो थी थंका बनाने की। थंका जो सिल्क कपड़े के ऊपर जो है पेंटिंग की जाती थी, फिर वो जो है वो हम श्रद्धा स्वरूप जो है वो मॉन्स्ट्रीज में देते थे, या घरों में उसकी पूजा अर्चना होती थी। अब ये जो आपको हैरानी होगी कि ये थंका भी अब जो है, ये जो हम इंपोर्ट कर रहे हैं, ये चाइना से इंपोर्ट आ रहा है। और हमारा पूरा मार्केट जो है इस पूरे जो हिमालयन रीजन का, लद्दाख से लेकर के अरुणाचल तक, वहां आपको इसकी सस्ती थंका, इसकी सस्ती कॉपीज उपलब्ध होगी। अब जो जो थंका बनाने वाले हैं, तो उनका व्यवसाय तो खत्म ही हो गया, जो ये कार्य कर रहे थे तो उनका मार्केट ही खत्म हो गया। जब ये उसकी इसी की सस्ती कॉपीज उपलब्ध है, तो इससे उनका क्या होगा, वो कैसे उनका रोजगार चल पड़ेगा इस तरह से। तो इसी तरह से जो जो अब इस तरह का जो अगर वातावरण रहेगा, जैसे मैंने आपको कहा कि, तो फिर तो ना कला रहेगी और ना कलाकार रहेगा। अब हम प्रलेखन तो हमने किया हुआ है, मतलब प्रलेखन जो है बहुत सारी संस्थाएं कर रही हैं, तो अब प्रलेखन से जो है उसके कुछ सैंपल्स हमें म्यूजियम में देखने को मिलेंगे, और वहां पर वो सुरक्षित रहेंगे, तो हम इसी से हम खुश रहेंगे कि हाँ जी, हमारी जो कला है वो यहाँ पर सुरक्षित है। लेकिन ये जो कला के साथ एक कलाकार है, कला के साथ एक वातावरण है, कला के साथ एक पर्यावरण है, वो तो सब नष्ट होता होता जा रहा है। और हमारे सामने ही देखने को हमने देखा बचपन से लेकर के अब तक, बहुत सारी जो कलाएं थी वो तो लुप्त ही हो गई है, प्राय लुप्त ही हो गई है। अब आईजीएनसी में प्रलेखन और शोध कार्य के साथ साथ जो है जन चेतना का भी कार्य किया है आईजीएनसी ने, मतलब जितना भी संभव हो सका इंदिरा गांधी राष्ट्रीय कला केंद्र ने कार्य किया है। अब आप देखिए कि जो रम्मान फेस्टिवल है जो है, और इससे संबंधित कला को जो है यूनेस्को में रजिस्टर किया गया, ये बहुत बड़ा कार्य था जो आईजीएनसी के द्वारा हुआ। इसको जो एक विश्व एक ख्याति मिली इस फेस्टिवल को, और इससे जुड़े हुए जो एक जो उसका जो एक सांस्कृतिक परिवेश है उसको सुरक्षित करने में एक बहुत बड़ा योगदान रहा। और कुछ वर्ष जो है पूर्व में हमने जो है एक सहारनपुर में एक जो है सेमिनार किया था। वो जो सेमिनार था वो था आर्ट एंड क्राफ्ट ऑफ दोआब रीजन, गंगा दोआब पर एक जो है एक संगोष्ठी हुई थी। और इस संगोष्ठी के बाद जो है एक चर्चा हुई कि सहारनपुर में थे, सहारनपुर जो है यहाँ पर जो है काष्ठ कला का बहुत बड़ा उद्योग है यहाँ पर, और हर घर में जो है लकड़ी पर कार्य किया जाता है, लकड़ी पर नक्काशी की जाती है। और पूरे देश में मैंने जो सहारनपुर के लकड़ी की जो वस्तुएं हैं, मैंने केरल में भी देखी, तमिलनाडु में भी देखी और कश्मीर में भी देखी, तो पूरे देश में ये छाया हुआ है। लेकिन वहां पर जो एक उसका जो प्रॉपरली ऑर्गेनाइज्ड जो वे होना चाहिए था कि उसमें कम से कम जो है वहाँ पर एक आर्ट सेंटर होना चाहिए था सहारनपुर में, और एक प्रॉपर एक जो है एक क्राफ्ट विलेज ही होता है जिसमें जगह मिल जाती है जो वहाँ के जो पारंपरिक जो कलाकार हैं उनको, और जो नया उसमें जो कार्य कर रहे हैं, नयापन लाने का प्रयास कर रहे हैं, उनको भी जगह मिल जाती। एक क्राफ्ट विलेज सा एक बन जाता है वो सहारनपुर तो काष्ठ कला के लिए मशहूर है ही है। तो अगर ऐसा एक सुंदर एक जो एक कला केंद्र वहाँ बन जाता है, और उसमें जो है कुछ लॉन्च भी होते, और वहाँ पर रहने की व्यवस्था होती, वहाँ पर जो है वो कलाकारों से मिलने की भी कुछ ऐसी व्यवस्था हो जाती, तो उससे जो है उस पूरे क्षेत्र को एक नया एक मतलब एक आकर्षण वो बन जाता है उस पूरे क्षेत्र के लिए और पर्यटन के लिए भी। तो ऐसा हमने एक ज्ञापन जो है जो सेमिनार के बाद जो है हमने राज्य सरकार को दिया। अब देखते हैं कि उसमें क्या प्रगति है, ये तो अभी समय के साथ पता चल जाएगा। और ये जो है, और इन चीजों से, छोटी छोटी चीजों से तो हम बहुत कुछ बदलाव ला सकते हैं। अब हिमाचल में जो है हमने जो है हिमाचल में बहुत सारी यात्राओं के दौरान हमने वहाँ के कम्युनिटी से बात करी। अब हमने देखा है कि ये जो बदलाव जो है जो वेस्टर्नाइजेशन मॉडर्नाइजेशन सो कॉल्ड, तो इसमें हम जो है सब कुछ हम खोते जा रहे हैं, हम अपनी जड़ों से ही करते जा रहे हैं। एक सब कुछ आर्टिफिशियल सा जो एक हम वातावरण बना रहे हैं। सर हमने जो है कुछ ऐसे हमने कार्य किए हैं IGNCA इंदिरा गांधी राष्ट्रीय कला केंद्र ने, चाहे वो लद्दाख में हो या जो है यहाँ पर हिमाचल में हो, कि जहाँ पर हमने जो है कम्युनिटी के साथ काम करके उनको प्रेरित किया कि वो जो है अपनी अपनी जो संस्कृति को संरक्षण दे, और उसके साथ साथ जो घरेलू उद्योग थे वो भी उनको भी उसमें वो दिखाएं और उनको बढ़ावा दे दें, और बदलाव हमें कुछ दिखा भी, और कुछ स्तर पर हम सक्सेसफुल रहे इसमें, और इस चीज को फिर दूसरे गांव वालों ने भी कॉपी किया है। हो सकता है कि ये आगे और जो है गति पकड़ेगा, और प्रयास हर स्तर पर करने की आवश्यकता है इस क्षेत्र में जो है, और हो भी रहा है। और उसमें मेरा सबसे आग्रह है, निवेदन है कि हम जो है घरेलू उत्पाद ही खरीदें, जिससे हम लाखों छोटे छोटे उद्योगों को बल देंगे, जिससे हमारी कला जिंदा रहेगी, हमारे कलाकार जिंदा रहेंगे। जय हिंद, नमस्कार।
Thank you, Mr. Bangru, for your very important and very valuable feedback, suggestions, information. So, ma'am, now I would like to come to you. Like you have listened, Professor Chatterjee, and also Mr. Bangru has given some observations and some suggestions, feedbacks. So, I would like to invite you again, Ms. Jaya Jaitly.
Thank you. There are some other speakers who also would like to say something, but I think every contribution which comes from the heart, where all of us who work in this sector, we can't work without a strong heart and a loving heart. तो बांगरू जी भी सब लोगों ने जो भी कहा वो एक मन और दिल के साथ लगाव रख के ही ये जानकारी प्राप्त किया है। और हम एक चीज नहीं समझ पा रहे हैं, ये और लोग हमारे जो नई पीढ़ी है वो इसको क्यों नहीं समझ पाते? क्या हमारी शिक्षा में कोई कमी है जिसके वो लोग गैजेट्स में ही रहते हैं, मॉल्स में ही जाते हैं, और उनको ये हस्तकला के बारे में बताया जाए तो बहुत प्रेरित हो जाते हैं। मैंने अशोका यूनिवर्सिटी में 12 हफ्ते का कोर्स किया, जिसमें बच्चे बिल्कुल आश्चर्य थे कि ये अच्छा ऐसे बनता है, ऐसा मुश्किल होता है एक छोटी चीज करना। उनसे करवाती थी मैं तो उनको पसीना आ जाता था एक साधारण काम में। उनको समझ में नहीं आया कि हाथ का काम में इतना मेहनत भी है और इतनी कला भी है। तो हमको IGNCA के द्वारा या कहीं भी जो भी हम सब के पास अब इतनी पीढ़ी हो गए, इतने साल हो गए हम लोग काम कर रहे हैं, एक एक चीज जो बांगरू जी बता रहे हैं, जो अशोक चैटर्जी ने भी कहा, मुझे भी अनुभव है। ये सारे गांव एक एक आदमी का एक एक उनके आंखों में हम लोग ये सब देख चुके हैं, ये कहानियां, ये रहन सहन। इसको कैसे नई पीढ़ी को आजकल के माहौल में, आजकल के टेक्नोलॉजी के द्वारा कैसे उनको बताया जाए, कैसे वो भी जब जैसे दिल्ली हाट आते हैं तो मैं नाराज हो जाती हूँ उनको देख के कि वो एक कश्मीरी हाथ का बुना हुआ शॉल, स्कार्फ अगर 800 रुपया मांग रहे तो उसके लिए कोई 400 रुपया में दे दो, 500 रुपया में दे दो, पैसा फेंक के चले जाते हैं। लेकिन वही बच्चे मॉल में जाके दुगना दाम का एक लिपस्टिक भी खरीद लेंगे। तो ये एक इंसान के हाथ का कीमत, उनके महत्व क्या है, वो हमें अपने नई पीढ़ी को सिखाना जरूरी है। तो कुछ ऐसे कोर्सेज IGNCA में कोर्सेज भी होते हैं, तो कुछ नई पीढ़ी के लिए हाउ डू दे एसोसिएट विद द प्रॉपर माइंड एंड अ प्रॉपर हार्ट विद क्राफ्ट। और वो जब तक उसमें हाथ नहीं लगाते हैं उनको समझ में नहीं आता कि कितना कठिन है, कितना पीढ़ियों के अनुभव चाहिए एक छोटा सा चीज बनाने के लिए। और जब मैं करवाती हूँ बच्चों से, या इवन हम लोग बाजारों में कभी कभी वर्कशॉप्स लगाते हैं, मधुबनी आर्टिस्ट चाइना तक गए हैं और चाइनीज औरतों के साथ या तमिलनाडु के औरतों के साथ वो लोग करवाते हैं मधुबनी पेंटिंग। तो बहुत लोगों को बहुत इंटरेस्ट है। तो कैसे हम और लोगों को, नई पीढ़ियों को सिखाए, इस पर हमें शायद ध्यान देने से हम ही लोग जो वही पुरानी बातें कहकर खत्म ना हो जाए, ये आगे भी लोगों के मन में बैठे।
अभी ये जो बांगरू जी का एक ऑब्जर्वेशन था कि पंजाब में बिहार से आई हुई जो वुमेन आर्टिस्ट हैं वो फुलकारी बना रही हैं, या मुरादाबाद में लद्दाख का जो आर्टिसंस का जो प्रोडक्ट है वो बनाया जा रहा है। मेरी सोच तो ये है कि हम इस तरीके से पूरे हिंदुस्तान में उसको पब्लिसाइज कर रहे हैं। अगर वहां पर क्राफ्ट्समैन सफर कर रहा है तो उनको भी एक अवेयरनेस की, या उनको ये बताने की जरूरत है कि आपको भी आगे आना होगा अगर वो कोई भी प्रोडक्ट किसी हिंदुस्तान के किसी दूसरे हिस्से से बन के आ रहा है, जिससे कि ठीक है, मशीन का मैं विरोध करता हूँ कि जो मशीन उत्पादन जो भी इस्तेमाल किया जा रहा है, लेकिन हैंडीक्राफ्ट अगर हम उसको ट्रेनिंग के थ्रू पूरे भारत में किसी क्राफ्ट को बढ़ा रहे हैं, प्रमोट कर रहे हैं और ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोगों को हम उसमें इन्वॉल्व कर रहे हैं, तो मेरी समझ में तो शायद ये एक अच्छी बात है। आपका इसके बारे में क्या? मैम जेटली, आप
इंट्रोड्यूस तो करनी चाहिए। और एक बात है कि अगर चीन से या बाहर से कोई कारीगरी या का वस्तु एक्चुअली नकली कारीगरी है, वहां तो मशीन में बन के आता है और उसको फिर हम लोग देखते नहीं है ये हाथ का बना हुआ राखी है या मशीन का। हम लोग प्लास्टिक और लाल पीला चमक से भ्रमित हो जाते हैं। लेकिन अगर हम एक आत्मनिर्भर कार्यक्रम के द्वारा या एक अपने देश से लगाव और प्यार रखना, इसका मतलब है अपनी परंपरा से लगाव रहना, तो इसमें हमें समझ में आना चाहिए कि एक राखी का मतलब क्या है। एक एक चीज के ऊपर एक कहानी होती है, किस लिए राखी बांधा जाता है। और मैंने मध्य प्रदेश में देखा है, छोटी सी गरीब औरतों के घर में, एक औरत के घर में एक छोटा सा एक प्लास्टर ऑफ पेपर मैशे का एक वॉल प्लैक था, जिसमें एक लड़का और एक लड़की हाथ पकड़ के उसका इमेज था, उसका अच्छा पेंटिंग करते हुए वो ऐसे ही नीचे जमीन पे पड़ा था। तो मैंने कहा ये किस लिए बनाया, कितनी खूबसूरत है। कहते हैं ये हम राखी पर बहन बनाती है भाई को देने के लिए। तो सिर्फ राखी नहीं, एक कला भी हाथ हाथ में ले लेती है। पेपर मैशे रिसाइकिल वेस्ट को लेके उसको मोल्ड करके, उसको पेंटिंग करके, लड़का लड़की भाई बहन का रूप बना के भाई के लिए तोहफा, एक गिफ्ट की तरह दे देते हैं। तो ये हर एक चीज के साथ एक जो प्यार होता है वो फेस्टिवल के साथ अगर हम लोग जोड़ा जाए, तो यही लोग जो राखी खरीद रहे हैं वो जाके प्लास्टिक का चमक वाला नहीं खरीदेंगे। हमने अपनी कहानियां भूल गए, हम सिर्फ वस्तु को वस्तु जैसे देखने लग गए। इंसान, उसके पीछे क्या है, बनाने वाला कौन है, और उसके पीछे क्या ऐतिहासिक कहानी है, सांस्कृतिक कहानी है, वो हम लोग सब भूल गए हैं। तो अभी डॉक्यूमेंटेशन और टेक्नोलॉजी का जमाना है, तो टेक्नोलॉजी से भी ये स्टोरीज बताना संभव है। कारीगर के मुंह से ही बताए या उनके प्रोसेस को दिखाए। छोटे छोटे वीडियोस भी हम लोग वीडियो क्लिप्स जैसे कर सकते हैं। अगेन कमिंग बैक टू द इश्यू ऑफ एजुकेटिंग अ न्यू जनरेशन, तो वो सब चीज उसी में घूमता है। चाहे पंजाब अगर आप फुलकारी के बारे में जानकारी आपको हो गया कि फुलकारी किस लिए बनता था, माँ क्यों बेटी के लिए बनाती थी, बाग का क्या मतलब है, उसमें कैसे ऑर्नामेंटेशन का एम्ब्रॉयडरी करते हैं, क्यों लड़की के लिए, क्यों ये भावना, ये सब चीजें समझ में आता है तो फिर पता चलेगा कि अच्छा ये फुलकारी फिर इधर कैसे बन रहा है जब पंजाब में बनना चाहिए। फुलकारी में भी इमिटेशंस बहुत होने लग गए, मशीन का उल्टा सिलते थे, अब ऊपर से ही सिल के आसान कर रहा है। लेकिन कम से कम समझे, हम लोग समझे बगैर हम कैसे सीख सकते हैं, कैसे उसको अप्रिशिएट कर सकते हैं, कैसे कारीगरों को ढूंढ ढूंढ के जाके उनसे लें। ये बात हमारी कमियां हैं जो हम अभी उस कमी को दूर कर सकते हैं अगर हम टेक्नोलॉजी को उपयोग करें इसमें।
Thank you. Professor Chatterjee, would like to give some comments on what Mr. Birendra Bangru has just shared his experiences of various crafts and the craftsmen. Like to make some observations or comments or anything else you would like to add to this discussion?
मैं सिर्फ ये कहना चाहूँगा कि जैसे वीरेंद्र जी ने उदाहरण दिया है कि कितने अलग अलग प्रॉब्लम्स हो रहे हैं मार्केट में, मुरादाबाद, बस्तर, लद्दाख, सहारनपुर, ये सब तो चल रहा है ज़रूर, पर इसको हल करने के लिए हम क्या कर सकते हैं? जैसे जया जी ने कहा है, इसकी बुनियादी बात यह है कि शिक्षा, और शिक्षा के लिए तो आपका संस्थान है IGNCA का यही तो कारण है। The IGNCA was created for this purpose, to create an awareness. अब ये जो प्रॉब्लम्स हो रहे हैं मार्केट प्लेस में, इसके कोई सरल जवाब देना मुश्किल है इस वक्त, पर मेरे सोच में सवाल ये होता है कि हर कला के लिए उसकी जो क्वालिटी है, उसके जो मूल्य है, उसके जो परंपरा है, उसके क्या क्या मापदंड है, और वो मापदंड पर हमें असर देना है। वो मापदंड हमें तो अगले पीढ़ी को समझाना पड़ेगा। I don't think it matters whether a lady from Bihar makes pulkari. What matters is the pulkari she has made beautiful, and is it in respect of the parampara? मान लीजिए जामदानी का एक परंपरा है which Bangladesh is famous for, ढाका मसलिन। अभी आपको मालूम है कि जामदानी का जो मोनोपोली आप कह सकते हैं, it used to be ढाकाई, used to known as ढाकाई, पर जामदानी का जो कला है, it spread to all parts of the country, Andhra Pradesh, Bengal, Punjab, Sindh, all over the country. Now, not long ago, India got what was called a GI, Geographic Indicator for Jamdani. और हमारे जो बांग्लादेश में जो सहयोगी हैं, उन्होंने they were very worried. वो कह रहे हैं कि अरे आपने हमारा कला को ले लिया है। पर सवाल ये था कि Jamdani has traveled for years, for generations, for centuries from one part of the country to the other. It came to India from somewhere else. It wasn't born in Bengal. It came to Bengal from elsewhere. So when we look at these crafts, we have to understand, as has been said by Virendraji and Jayaji, what is behind the product? What is the quality? What gives that quality integrity? We are talking about integrity of the crafts. And the integrity of the craft is not only geography. It's not only the nationality or the ethnicity of who makes it. It is the respect for that tradition. It is the scholarship, the understanding, and the parampara, if you like. So one of the efforts that is being made now is that various organizations are looking at what is called certification. And this again comes back to the issue that you have been discussing about education. Unless the consumer, the buyer is educated of what is important about a craft, then this kind of nonsense will continue in the marketplace. So the issue is that we have to do a massive job of public education. And this is where IGNCA can play a very, very important role, because IGNCA is an educational institution. It is there to create this awareness. And I think, for example, when was it, 2 years ago, you had that wonderful exhibition about the pastoral crafts and the pastoral traditions. This was a huge education to young people who had never heard of pastoral crafts. And they learnt about it by coming to IGNCA, by touching and feeling these things, by meeting people who are from the pastoral craft tradition. So I think the issue that has come up from Rendraji's observations about what is going on is that if we don't want a future of bogus crafts, if we want the parampara to be protected, then we have to understand what that parampara is. And if basically that parampara is a value system, it's not only about geography, it's not only about ethnicity. It is about it is about integrity. It is about pehchan. Some years ago, there was a great feeling that China is copying Benares brocade and selling Banarasi brocade in India at cheaper rates, passing it off as Banarasi brocade. Now that was an example of this. But when we talked to the artisans of Banaras and said that this is what is happening, they said, yes, it is happening, because the buyer does not have any understanding of pehchan. They don't know the difference between one thing and another. So we have to do a job of education. We really have to do that. And that is where I think IGNCA can play a very, very important role. Also by reaching out from IGNCA to educational institutions all over the country. Just as Jaya was saying, you can now with technology, that is where technology can come in. By providing these kind of quick aids and to spread the word about authenticity. What does authenticity in craft mean? That is what we should be looking at and trying to redefine, because the world has changed now. And maybe a Bihari lady can make great pulkari. And if she can make great pulkari, that's wonderful, provided it is approved and it is authentic to the parampara of pulkari and not passed off as pulkari in another place, in another market, as if it is made in Punjab. That is where the problem arises, which we should try to protect.
Thank you, Mr. Chatterjee. It's a wonderful discussion. We have noted down all the points. Definitely, IGNCA is well aware of all those issues. I just want to inform you that we have already started one PG diploma course in our Ranchi Regional Center on this tribal art and craft. And we have planned to replicate in other centers to promote the regional art and craft. And definitely we have been doing exhibitions, preserving the cultural heritage and various kind of, the main topic emerged out of the discussion is that we need to educate and we need to create an awareness among our young minds, those new millennials, because they need to be, like you talk about parampara and also about the, like creating identity about that particular product. Like people really do not understand our Indian handicraft, particularly young generation. This is true. They don't understand like meaning of different form of the arts. So I think like our new education policy has a focus on art integrated learning. I think so somewhere like agency alone may not be able to take up this such a big task of creating an awareness and also even the transfer of knowledge from one generation to another generation. I think somewhere we need, like we did I just want to quote, we did a survey of healers in Northeast state. And many of these healers have learned from their families. And after that, now what they are realizing, their younger generation is not learning that particular healing practices. So they feel that after them, this will be no more alive. So I think somewhere some integration of these art and crafts with the modern education system or modern learning, I think that is also important. So like many unemployed people, they are like a graduate having a BA degree, don't have any job opportunity. So why we can't encourage that person to learn some craft to become an artisans and can have a livelihood instead of waiting for a job of a attendant or a peon. I think that will be more respectable because he will be a self-entrepreneur. So I think that kind of value education, some kind of awareness, I think maybe the right step in the direction. So we can protect our handicraft, we can promote our handicraft and artisans, and definitely we can definitely talk about having big impact on Indian economy through Indian handicrafts. So I think it was so nice to hear you. I'm so grateful to both of you for sparing valuable time. And now I would like to invite my colleague Mekhla to propose a formal vote of thanks before concluding this webinar.
Thank you so much, sir. Before proposing vote of thanks, I would like to speak few lines on crafts. Story of Indian handicraft is related with the development of Indian civilization since the ancient times. Handicrafts were initially simple objects made essentially for daily use by ancient man, but the carving for artistic appeal, craving for artistic appeal soon resulted in the growth of numerous attractive styles and designs. The crafts of India are diverse, rich in history, culture, and religion. The craft of each state in India reflect the influence of different empires. Throughout centuries, crafts have been embedded as a culture and tradition within rural communities. The handicrafts of India have been loved and respected worldwide and have left everyone awestruck. It's a great honor and privilege to propose vote of thanks in this memorable occasion. I would like to express my sincere thanks to our member secretary, Dr. Sachchidanand Joshi ji, for giving me this opportunity. Undoubtedly, this webinar would not have been successful without the timely support and guidance of our dynamic HOD Kalanidhi, Professor R.C. Gaur sir, who has made this event successful. Thank you so much, sir. On behalf of Indira Gandhi National Centre for the Arts, I extend a very hearty thanks to Srimati Jaya Jaitly ji, Madam, and Professor Ashoke Chatterjee sir for gracing the occasion and sharing with us your valuable inputs in today's webinar. Finally, it gives me immense pleasure to thank all the dignitaries participating in today's webinar. I would like to thank Banguji for capturing all these images without which this presentation could not have been possible. Without the support of media unit, this virtual exhibition would have been next to impossible. Pardon me if I have forgotten to mention anybody's name who were directly or indirectly associated with this webinar. Once again, I would like to thank all the dignitaries and participants of this webinar. Thank you.
And I also got an idea, like we talk about education a lot, how to really provide education on these aspects. So now we have new education policy. So if we can put up a roadmap to the government, like what kind of art and craft education is required in schools, in universities, because we have different level of institutions. But that kind of awareness, like you talk about identification and differentiating between the fake and the original craft. So those kind of like awareness or some kind of vocational education is also very important. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Professor Chatterjee, and look forward to meeting you again. Thank you. Bye-bye.